Ask anyone who works in marketing, and I guarantee you will get the same reaction. Um, we all know marketing and sales have become two very, very different, separate disciplines over time. And yet there is nothing more infuriating when, as someone who is a marketer, you meet someone who has sales and marketer in their title, because you can guarantee they do either one or the other more than the former. And it happens all the time. Or you see people who are marketers get shoved into the sales department, and they don't stick around very long at all because they're surrounded by people who are sales wanting vastly different things. And again, marketing is a completely different way of thinking about this type of thing. So it's not just, of course, marketing that I want to talk about today, but it just is to show you, really, marketing's more than people tend to think. Yeah, there's a lot more of strategy stuff in there, how you actually communicate, what you're exactly saying, who your target market is, what you're targeting them for, what you want them to say, what your call to action is. A ton of stuff goes on in this. And I think really more and more we are seeing, because this was something, if you remember, if you maybe watch many of my good morning walks we've had over the years, I was in a field for the longest time saying Keir Starmer needs to get out and say what it is he's going to do. He needs to have a manifesto. He needs to tell the country what it is he is going to do. And I was adamant that that was what he needed to do for like the longest time. I was on Labour Social, even in the build up to this, were like, Labour comms terrible. Like the comms team terrible. And I have even worse comments for the Lib Dems. Now, the Lib Dems seem to have improved. Certainly they did during the general election. Oh, certainly during the general election, because I have described their comms as the ghost party. Every so often you hear a rattle of chains in the attic and you're like, oh, what's that sound? Oh, it's the Lib Dems. But, of course, the Lib Dems, comparatively good. Of course, you could be the Green Party and barely making any noise whatsoever. Especially, not that long since the general election, radio silence. But there you go. Anyway, comms are a really important thing. And I think one of the big things you are missing here, one of the big things I think that is doing a lot of damage to Keir Starmer in the in the polling from sort of people's opinions, is he is not communicating, and instead he is firefighting. Everything we are seeing is reactive, trying to fight fires. If a story comes out, they've got to come out and douse the fire out. This, again, can be necessary if you've got a story or anything. But if you want to say, oh, by the way, we're doing this, but meanwhile, of course, you've got a firefighter standing next to them, trying to put out a burning building, who do you think the news is going to focus on? The firefighter putting out the burning building, or someone like Angela Rayner saying, oh, well, we've done this really good thing recently. Who do you think the media is going to focus on? And this is something that does really need to, I think, be tackled. And ironically, I think maybe Boris Johnson had the answer. I know, crazy, right? But hear me out. You may remember, of course, during COVID, Boris loved coming out and doing his big TV show moments about COVID. And again, it communicated with the British public saying, this is what we're going to do. This is what you need to do. These are the rules. Go follow them. Now, of course, they didn't, but that's beside the point. What happened, though, was that people did listen. They sat up and they listened to what was going on. They knew what was going on. This was being communicated to them, so they knew what they needed to do. Now, of course, what you have is the communications director, currently number 10, and they have the infamous 8 o'clock meeting. And this 8 o'clock meeting focuses on just newspaper headlines, not what's going on social media, not what is going on things like the morning shows. The only morning show that actually ever gets listened to is the Sunday one. You know, that's the only one they care about. But it's just so much more. The fact that they ignore massively what is being said on social media. Is there, and this is a genuine question because I don't think there is one. Is there actually a social media listening plan in place for number 10? Don't think so. Don't think so at all. Not one. And of course, this is, you would have a program, you put in like, I want to hear what people are saying, about this company. And of course, these, programs will always go, right, so and so said this about this company, so and so said this about this, so and so said this about this. And you use those to then frame, right, okay, well, people are saying some positive stuff about this, so let's turn that into sort of a marketing campaign. People being very negative about this. Let's find a way we can turn that into maybe to something positive, or maybe we can use that to address something else. I guarantee you there is no social listening campaign going on within the comms team. But this is once again where we need to look at what Boris Johnson did, because everyone really thought for a time that post COVID, what we were going to end up having was a White House style press briefing. And the White House press briefing basically has two people. It has the comms strategist, I believe, and then the press secretary. And both of them sort of work in tandem with each other, but both have very different objectives. One is the front face. He'll go out, he'll do the meetings, with all the information, while the other one will, of course, be in the background handling all the strategy, the comms, and other things as well. So this is something I think we should do. I think if Keir Starmer wants to help himself in the polls, say, okay, this is what we are doing. This is why we are doing it, because that is another area where he is missing out. And this is where he needs to communicate more. We are doing this because of this. And that is not what is getting through. He isn't telling the story as to why they are having to do this. What's going on here? What are the benefits going to be? Well, we've done this, so we've done this. Rachel Reeves came out the CBI the other day and said, I do not want to have to pass another budget like that. Now, unless you were, like me, someone who looks for this stuff, have you heard Rachel Reeves say that? Bear in mind, that was a big business conference for the CBI. You barely heard anyone, maybe me, you've heard me say that, but again, no one said anything about it. Very, very few, little to no media attention. So, should we, I think, or at least should Starmer really be looking at turning it into a White House setup where you've got your press secretary and you've got your communication strategy guy. Your comm secretary goes out and say, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, and answers questions, from the press pool. Turn that, put that thing in the, put the lobby into a press pool, get them to sort of, they can answer questions, from their press secretary, fires back and so on and so on. I think that would be quite actually successful at this moment in time. I think this is something Starmer needs to do. And it is all about less firefighting, more storytelling. Really going out and saying to the British public, look, we've had to do this, this, and this. I know none of you, a lot of you had been out there and like this, but this is why we're having to do this. Because if we didn't do this, maybe we would be forced to do this instead. Tell that story to the British people. Remind them that you've had 14 years of a Conservative government that has been completely fiscally disastrous. Remind them, of course, about Liz Truss and, of course, her disasters that have piled onto this as well. So much store should be communicated to the British public, and it's not, and it's infuriating. As someone who works in marketing, the obvious is very clear to me. There is a lack, really, of strategical communicated thinking. They seem to be stuck in the past, ignoring things like what's going on in social media, what's going on online, just completely ignoring this and only focusing on what's the headline today? What we're going to firefight today, and that stops you because, as I said moments ago, you can put out government ministers saying, "Oh, we're doing this wonderful, fantastic thing." Meanwhile, guy next to him, with a fire hose trying to put out a building. Who do you think the media is going to focus on? So let me know what you think, because I really do think this is becoming very, very clear that there is an absence of sort of real direction in there. And I think it is the problem that Keir Starmer is facing. And I think that's where he needs to sort of tackle. And I think it is this old way of thinking. And I've seen it many, many times in sort of my experience in sort of marketing, especially dealing with a lot of older companies. They've either just completely ignored social media, even though they've sort of done stuff in social media. They know they have to have a social media, but they don't exactly know why they have to have it. You know, it's there to me. It's obvious somewhere where the flaw is there. But let me know what you think as well on this. I think definitely, 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 definitely less firefighting, more storytelling from number 10. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, let me know what you think down below. And of course, do remember to click the like and share button on your way out. And we'll see you all next time.